في كتير طرق وسط الحياة تاهوا فيها ناس، وطرق تبان مفروشة ورد وتنتهي بألم وضيق، لكن الطريق للفرحة وطريق الخلاص عند المسيح. أصل المسيح هو الحياة، هو الطريق. الطريق 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 الطريق
Well, here we are again. So marijuana, and we got the drug cartels, we got the Muslim Brotherhood, we got ISIS. We've got, oh, what a terrible web we do weave when at first we practice to deceive. Hey, glad to be back on the show. This show is designed for a couple of law enforcement people who are taking a look at what I'm talking about and the symbiotic relationship between the marijuana law in California now that it's legal recreational marijuana. And we know over the last number of years that drug cartels have been, of course, murdering people and selling illegal marijuana. The narco dictatorship of Mexico, we've proven through videos, which we have online and we can show to these former law enforcement folks. When we went down to the border in Arizona, just south of Fort Huachuca, Sierra Vista, where the drug cartels were coming across the San Pedro River, which is on a tombstone. You remember, of course, Wyatt Earp fame. After we did one of the videos, within 30 days, they captured 5 ISIS guys about 20 miles due west of us on the border. I know this because I had confirmation not only in the media, but a number of retired Army officers and high-ranking enlisted folks. I go down there and meet with them. So we have this relationship going on. So we've got the marijuana, we got the Muslim Brotherhood, and now we weave it together with the hidden instrument of 14 centuries or more on how the terrorists are able to send cash from one point of the world to another. It's called Hawala, H-A-W-A-L-A. You can type it, put in Wikipedia, and it's got some pretty good explanations. We have authors at the highest level. Jean-Charles Brissard of France did a article years and years ago, around 2002 or 3, describing how the Saudi Arabias and Hawala works, and there's other articles how it's untraceable, where it involves people getting cash, giving cash to an intermediary, so that intermediary transmit money somehow, a number of ways, FedEx or wires money, but it would be from one intermediary to another intermediary who gets this, and then he turns it into cash, and he turns it over to the terrorists to blow people up. We know this is going on. In fact, there's a huge law firm, OSIN, Attorneys at Law, with their phone number, 201-265-2708, how terrorists move funds through the global financial system. And again, it talks about Hawala in here. It's over 1,400 years. The banking system that a lot of people think the Crusaders brought to the West came from Hawala, H-A-W-A-L-A, not to be confused with halal, H-A-L-A-L. Halal means good, and when they prepare food in Islamic countries, then it's, according to Sharia law, then it's called halal, H-A-L-A-L. Haram, H-A-R-A-M, means evil. Hawala means how they transmit cash. And for the Muslims, it's halal, it's good. And for us, those who are trying to survive, people like this, who a guy who operated openly in San Diego with moving the 19 guys who flew into the World Trade Center from the Middle East into the United States and then blew up the World Trade Center. For those of us who are trying to stop this, Hawala is haram. Hawala is evil. So this gentleman here, shall I call him a gentleman, had a mosque in California, in San Diego, on the border of La Mesa, and he openly coordinated the 19 guys who flew into the World Trade Center. One of the contributors was George W. Bush's good friend, Prince Bandar, gave $130,000. And this was done through Hawala, through cash, through hiding and laundering money, through marijuana, through cocaine, through other illicit drugs. And the network created by this guy with senior players in Los Angeles and in Corona and San Francisco, all throughout California, in Kingman, Arizona, Tucson, Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona, through all 50 states of the United States, back to Europe, South America, to the Middle East, Hawala. Now, my background, a lot of people say, well, how the hell do you know this stuff? Well, as an 18-year-old kid in Vietnam, I was fluent in Vietnamese, and I led a team of Marines and South Vietnamese militia, anywhere between 30 and 70 men going out on ambush every night. I was fluent in Vietnamese, and the people came to trust me because I was like Wyatt Earp. I protected them, fighting with and for the militia just inches away from their families behind us, protecting them. And that is where I learned gathering human intelligence. I was so good at doing it that General Mattis' staff, the now Secretary of Defense, hired me at $500 an hour to come down and brief IMEP about how myself and my team was able to be so successful stopping the North Vietnamese, killing them so successfully that they wouldn't even come into my area. That's where I learned human intelligence. Later on, the Marine Corps helped with a stipend, paying for my college degree. I became an officer, and I was a battalion battle planner for 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines. Okay, so all of that background, I do have that. It's easy to substantiate. If you know who I am and you want to call me, I will give you the 3 numbers of the 3 colonels who were there during that briefing, and they knew that I was selected to come down by another colonel. And I don't want to disclose names over the air. I don't want to get them into trouble. Okay, so with no further ado, clip number 14, and we're going to start with the Grand Mufti of Germany in World War II and how he operated as a Muslim Brotherhood and working with the Muslim Brotherhood. And a lot of these drug dealings and networks started with him. Clip number 14.
Beirut, 1974. A passionate crowd of Arabs gathers for the funeral of one of their former leaders. Mohammed Amin al-Husseini was a controversial figure throughout his life. A man whose decisions fundamentally affected the lives of his people. At just 26, he rose to claim the title Grand Mufti, the spiritual and political leader of hundreds of thousands of Palestinian Arabs. He is a character who, even now, polarizes opinion, particularly between Jews and Arabs. To many Jews, he is a man who collaborated with the Nazis and provides clear proof that all Arabs utterly despise them. He clearly supported the extermination of millions of Jews. In his own words, he said, "Kill the Jews wherever you find them. This pleases God, history, and religion." He even went as far as recruiting Muslims to form a special division of the dreaded SS.
The Mufti, as he himself acknowledged very clearly.
Okay, so you got the Grand Mufti there. Now, he's directly linked to this fellow here. This guy named Anwar al-Awlaki. By the way, this guy, we killed him a few years ago for practicing his religious beliefs. So those who believe the First Amendment is absolute are absolutely incorrect. We killed him for practicing his religious belief. His religious beliefs was jihad, going out and killing, murdering people, blowing up the World Trade Center, then fleeing for his life when he was found out to Yemen. And then we killed him in Yemen for practicing his religious beliefs. So a lot of this you will find out as I explain this stuff to people immediately. Law enforcement, jurists, including judges, will come back to me and say, hey, Steve, we got a First Amendment here. They can do anything they want. Oh, really? Well, not according to this. Anwar al-Awlaki, we killed him. Now, we have two other key examples of men who were fulfilling their religious belief and hiding underneath that. That would be Warren Jeffs, who was having sex with underage girls, fundamental LDS. He's in prison for life. And Charles Manson finally died and passed away. I have shown multiple videos here. If you go back and you look at them, and I can show you videos where the Muslim Brotherhood are burning up and stomping on a flag in New York, and they say, hey, there's a big loophole in the laws of the United States, and we're legal, that we can do this, and they're crying out to their Muslim friends watching them burn up and stomp on the American flag. It's the First Amendment. We can do whatever we want and just claim religious liberty. And that's what a lot of this Hezbollah and all this stuff is going under. So we have that guy with the RPG. Now, he's directly related to this guy here. This is Hussam Ayloush, leader of the Council on American Islamic Relations in California. He's a leader of the Muslim Brotherhood. The four fingers, I took this from his Facebook page, means he's a member of the Muslim Brotherhood. This is a symbol of nuclear, biological, chemical warfare with a line through it, and he was angry because the leader of Syria was using chemical war weapons to kill al-Nusra, which became ISIS and closely aligned to them. He's a Sunni. He doesn't like Bashar Assad because he's a Shiite. And, of course, Iraq is predominantly Shiite, and, of course, Iran is too. So we have these guys, and, again, all of this, oh, what a terrible web we do weave when at first we practice to deceive. When we marijuana and we bring in the terrorist funding of all these guys here, again, back to this legal law firm here, how terrorists move funds through the global financial system, and Hawala, not to be confused with halal. We have other articles that are coming out now. Finally, some people are beginning to take a look at this, and some of them are looking at the marijuana law in California, where it used to be medical marijuana, and so then you have the Muslim Brotherhood coming in and buying these medical marijuana dispensaries, and they're skimming cash off as part of this hawala. And also that's part of what's known as zakat. Z as zebra, A, K as king, A-T, zakat. Now, in Sharia law, zakat, you strip off 2.5% of the money that you get, and you use that to fund the poor in Islam. But according to Islam today, this guy was poor, and this guy, who's part of the network of the global Muslim Brotherhood, he's poor. So a lot of this money is coming back, being skimmed off the top of the drug dealers and used to fund terrorism. For example, we have Operation Cassandra, where you have President Obama, John Kerry, and they were involved with the president of Islam and getting the nuclear arms over there. And under Operation Cassandra, what happened was that Obama and his people were stopping the FBI and DEA in the United States and permitting Hezbollah and others to come in and work with the legal marijuana shops wherever they're found, like in Colorado, now in California, and, of course, working with the drug cartels down in Mexico, Los Zetas and Sinaloa, bringing across illegal drugs, and that's why I went down to the border and did that video. Here's a map. I know it's hard to see. I don't apologize. It's the best we can do, so we do the best we can. On there is the trade routes of the drugs and the narcotics coming all over the world. Involved also in this, you have human harvest of organs and whatnot, which is done by the Prime Minister of Kosovo. That would be Hashim Thaki right here, who's a Sunni Muslim. That's George W. Bush. Yes, indeed, they were working together, unknown to them, doing that. Why do they do that? Well, always follow the money. Always follow the money. So here you have a little picture I put together. So you have the dollar, the euro, the pound, and the yen, and in the middle, Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is tasked as the leader of Islam throughout the world. Here you have more jihadists, and they're involved in getting these drugs into California, Arizona, United States, Colorado, wherever, New York. Wherever there's money, just follow the money. It's not that hard. But what's happening through many years of our presidents, going back all the way to George Herbert Walker Bush, where I have a quote from him when he inaugurated the terrorist mosque in Culver City by Santa Monica in California, that his job to spread Islam wherever he goes. Sadly, he also, in about 1990, according to Dory Gold, the former ambassador to the United Nations from Israel, he wrote Hatred's Kingdom, and in there he said about 1990 or so, which would have been George Herbert Walker Bush's time, was this influence of CIA, vice president, and all the other offices he held, that nothing could be attributed to terrorism if it was religious-based. He wouldn't permit that to do. And when I was hired and fired by General Mattis, and again, I have 3 Marine Corps colonels that I can turn over to you. You can vet them, and they will confirm what happened. That once I started telling the truth about Islamic battle planning being based on what did Muhammad do, I was called out and told, hey, we're not going to pay you the $500 to, beat up on Muhammad and Islam. I said, hey, I'm not beating up on him. I'm telling the truth. I'm a former battle planner for 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines, as you are for the 5th Marines, Colonel. And I'm merely telling the truth. So what you want me to do is lie through omission, not tell the truth. And what if somebody gets suicide bombed and killed because I refuse to tell the truth? Which happened, by the way, to my son 3 years later. My son was suicide bombed and shot up. Thank God he had listened to me and was able to barely survive. And he's had multiple operations since then. The Muslim Brotherhood should be outlawed. In their logo here, the Quran. Okay, the Quran, most people don't understand it. They've been lied to and said, oh, it's a peaceful, wonderful book. It's got the swords in there. The swords really aren't too peaceful. But here's the key right here, that Arabic at the very bottom. And you can look at this up online. Just type in Muslim Brotherhood logo on Wikipedia, and you'll see that the Arabic refers to Surah 860, which says, terrorize and wage war against the infidels. And when they do that, they mean by any means that they possibly can, like the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem. Back here, now you have fraudsters and money launderers' use of advanced techniques, including artificial intelligence, is accelerating cutting edge. Artificial intelligence isn't optional. It's required for investigators to be effective in anticipating and responding to these changes. Used by organized crime and terrorist financing. I have this available for you too. Of course, the guy leaves out, in the whole article, he leaves out Hawala. Why? Because Hawala is outside of electronic transmission and banking records. They take a bag of cash, they give it to a Hawala Dar, who's an intermediator. He gives a receipt to the guy that gave him the cash. He has an intermediary wherever they're sending the cash. If they're sending it, say, to Kosovo, or they're sending it to Afghanistan, then there's another intermediary over in that country called a Hawaladar, and he gets notification from the Hawaladar in the United States, hey, I'm sending you over $100,000, and you're supposed to give it to Osama bin Laden. So the Hawaladar, under Hawala means trust, he gives the $100,000 to Osama bin Laden or Anwar al-Awlaki, and then the 2 intermediaries somehow exchange the cash by using UPS or selling cars, which brings us to another point. In the Operation Cassandra with President Obama, when he was preventing the DEA and FBI from investigating these people, these narcotics sold at legal marijuana shops, or the different ways they're doing it. In this also, Hezbollah and the Iranians had set up 300 used car dealers in the United States, and they were taking, these were Shiite Muslims, they still own them today, right now, these 300 car dealerships in the United States, and shipping them over to a city called Benin, over by, I think it's part of Nigeria. And then they were taking these cars and selling them to the Africans. When they got the cash, they were giving it to Boko Haram and the other terrorist group over there called the Fulani. So Boko Haram and Fulani and then other terrorist groups were getting that money also. So we have another article, Terrorism, Drug Trafficking, and ISIS When Wicked Worlds Collide. Very interesting. It says terrorism and narcotics have always been connected, and he goes back to hashish and how the Muslims, years and years ago, hashish, they would smoke the hashish before they would go and attack the non-Muslims, and that's where the word assassin comes from, etymologically from hashish. So let's take a look at clip number 12. Clip number 12.
There is tremendous deception in terms of saying one thing publicly and another thing privately. Yasser Arafat obviously was the master of this dual agenda in terms of openly supporting pluralism or nonviolence or condemning terrorism.
I condemn completely these terrorist activities.
And then secretly or behind closed doors supporting it.
Sometimes you would find a Muslim who appears to be moderate.
We were the first, as you may remember, post-September the 11th, who said that the actions of flying planes full of...
The very last guy there, Shadari, now he's in prison. Finally, the British figured out that he was doing, there's four words in Islam, how to lie. There's different nuanced shades of the lying, and depending on who you're going to lie to. And frankly, I don't understand the culture, and you know, if I'm going to lie like Pinocchio, I just lie. I'm sorry I cannot lie. I didn't chop down a cherry tree. Of course, I lie, you lie, we all lie. But in this case, the four words in Islam to go out and wage jihad are taqiyya, kitman, muruna, and tariq. Taqiyya, kitman, muruna, and tariq. And what you saw there was what these guys here used. We have videos. We've showed him. He is a Muslim Brotherhood, member of the Muslim Brotherhood. This is from his Facebook page. I found this years ago and started posting it all over the internet. I passed out flyers where he lives in Corona, California, and was so successful on identifying him as a member of the Muslim Brotherhood and what he does that he contacted one of his friends in the California State Assembly and tried to make it unlawful for Americans under the First Amendment to pass out flyers that tell the truth about people like this who are members of the Muslim Brotherhood. They're very humorous. But he uses taqiyya, kitman, muruna, and tariya. He, on an interview, which we showed in one of our clips, like what did Mohammed do, number 103 or 104, he's being interviewed, and he says, Muslim Brotherhood in the United States? No, I don't know anything about, no. He is a member of the Muslim Brotherhood. He's a member of the Muslim Brotherhood. These two guys operated only about 50, maybe 60 miles apart. This guy here we killed in Yemen. This guy here is actively still working with the LAPD and the LA sheriffs, operating under the logo of the Muslim Brotherhood. Down here, Surah 860, to terrorize and wage war. All of this, how terrorists move funds through global financing system, how they're operating, working with legal marijuana stores, selling cars, selling drugs. We know they're involved in this sex slave trafficking, pedophilia in the United States. We know from this picture here with George W. Bush that they're involved in capturing Christians, doing DNA tests on them. And when rich people in Turkey or Saudi Arabia need a lung or kidney or heart, they kill them and then they fly it over to those people overseas. It's all of this is involved with Hezbollah and this global terrorist funding all through the United States. It's a general concept that I'm doing right now. I do have some information on individuals, but it's incomplete because just like when I was in Vietnam with the cell organization of the Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese Army, trying to get names, trying to get proof when they're hiding everything. And believe me, the Muslim Brotherhood, the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, was a master at hiding. We never captured that guy. Even though he led a civil war in Iraq, even though he was responsible with the Waffen-SS that he was in charge of from Yugoslavia, today Kosovo, Albania, and Bosnia, even though he's responsible for much of the Holocaust, we couldn't get any proof on that guy. We couldn't get any proof on that guy, and that's how they work. Clip number 9.
Sweden is such a feminist country, so feminist that the police have responded to the well-documented migrant rape epidemic by telling Swedish women not to go out at night alone, otherwise you will be raped.
Som vi ser det just nu så rekommenderar vi framförallt kvinnor som rör sig ute sent på nätterna att helst inte göra det utan ordna skjuts eller att man är fler människor som går i grupp.
You may wonder about the mentality of someone who would go to a country, ask for asylum, get money from the government as a charity of their...
Okay, so that's going on in the United States. This is a picture that I'd have to show you. I showed it to a couple of friends yesterday who were interested. 1980, this is California, La Raza, members of La Raza. Up here you have a picture of Ayatollah Khomeini. Down here you have Yasser Arafat. They went to meet over in the Middle East with Yasser Arafat. Now, we do know for a fact that Yasser Arafat and the PLO were sending weapons and helping the Irish Republican Army because they hated the English. They're trying to destroy the West. Again, here's a same picture at the top. Underneath my finger here is Ayatollah Khomeini. Underneath that, you have Yasser Arafat, and you have La Raza. La Raza, this is 1980. So La Raza is involved in this too. They're aiding and abetting by helping, demanding that the immigrants, the Mexicans, come across. Now remember, a lot of the Middle Easterners, especially the people from North Africa and in Spain, now remember, the Arabians, the Muslims, the Arabians blew through out of Arabia, conquered Egypt, went over North Africa, all the way to the Straits of Gibraltar, crossed into Spain, conquered all of Spain, and then they went across the Pyrenees, and in 732 AD, Charles Martel, with an army of Christians, defeated them and chased them back over the Pyrenees and into Spain, a Song of Roland, and all of the folklore and stuff that goes along with that. I believe The Lord of the Rings is by Tolkien, is heavily influenced by that. World War I, World War II, heavy involvement of the Ottoman Empire and of the Muslims. You had Lawrence of Arabia and the Ottoman Empire of World War I, and you had also in World War II the Grand Mufti and during the Holocaust. So all of this stuff is woven together, and it all comes back to follow the money, follow the money. It's really interesting, the symbiotic relationship between common law, governance, and religion. Many people poo-poo that. They laugh at it, think it has nothing at all to do with it. Here you have the difference between Christianity, James 1:27, true religion is taking care of widows and orphans. And in Islam, true religion is Surah 860, the logo of the Muslim Brotherhood. And clearly in there it states to terrorize and wage war against the infidel. In other words, to kill men, creating widows and orphans. Now, I gleaned this, I thought of this as a battle planner, Occam's razor, take the complex, reduce the simple. When I looked at the Battle of Lepanto in 1573, and I'm almost done, I saw two gigantic navies, a Christian navy over here, a Christian navy over here versus a Muslim navy here. On these sails, you saw the cross. On these sails here, you saw the crescent moon. And what you saw was James 1:27, true religion is taking care of widows and orphans, and here true religion is waging jihad and war against the infidels, creating widows and orphans. So there is a distinct difference. And as you go through this, we will find out in the symbiotic relationship between common law, governance, and religion, that common law is to government what grammar is to communication. Grammar is invisible. You hear it and you know how to use it, and 10-year-old children know how to properly conjugate verbs and put syntax and sentences together. But it's an invisible means of communicating. And common law to government is the same thing. It's an invisible declaration of the culture and the religion of those people, so that when you try to graft in Islam into a Christian-based Western society, it doesn't work. You can find the Christian basis in the Constitution on Article 1, Section 8, Clause 10, the Law of Nations, clearly based on the Ten Commandments. I don't have time to go into that now. I have in earlier shows. Also in the Northwest Ordinance of 1787 and 1790, through the Constitutional Convention, it said religion being necessary for good government, because religion then and the law of nations in that Article 1, Section 8, Clause 10 was based on the Ten Commandments. I can prove that. I have books and documents put out by the Department of Defense in 1957 that says the true military officer's true job is to protect the Ten Commandments, because that is the basis of the Constitution of the United States. And I can show that to anybody who wants to look at it. This is an original document done in 1957. So, oh, what a terrible web we do weave when at first we practice to deceive. The marijuana shops, the drug, the killing of people for getting cash for their organs, the sex slaves, pedophilia, Harvey Weinstein, all of this stuff is woven together, and it all comes back to the Muslim Brotherhood right down here, Surah 860, to terrorize and wage jihad on the infidel, and they're doing that through how terrorists move funds through the global financial system, legal marijuana shops. Until next time, adios.